Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Football RPG. We are going through our prospect deep dive series. Today we have TreVeyon Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State, listed at 5'10", 208. That is unofficial. We'll know at the combine. He is 22. He will turn 23 in October as a rookie. David, what are some key statistics that people should know about TreVeyon Henderson?
Okay, so I don't think I'm breaking any news here when I say Ashton Genty's in a class of his own when it comes to every statistic.
Yep.
But if we
throw
look
that out.
so like everything I'm saying is with the caveat, the best any of these guys can do is second. But Henderson, what screams out is to me is his 2.55 missed tackles forced per touch, which is right in line with all the other top backs in the class. You look at Johnson, he's 0.275, Hampton 0.256, Judkins 0.22. So he's right in line with like the elite rushers of this class that aren't Ashton Genty, because obviously he's running laps around everyone. That's really, when I'm looking at a running back prospect, that's really the first thing I'm looking at, just because, you know, so much of a running back's production comes from the situation around them. But missed tackles force, that's generally something the running back is controlling on their own. He's right up there with all the non-Genty prospects. So that's what I like to see.
Yeah, no, we love that. And then he was also super productive while at Ohio State. We're not talking about a guy that was ever rushing for 2,000 yards or having 800 yards receiving. But despite injury concerns, despite a limited workload, we're talking about a guy that was one of the top rushers in the class, even just looking at counting yards. And then let's talk about the tape a little bit. Are there other statistics you want to jump into?
No, that's the biggest one for me that I wanted to cover.
Yeah, that sticks out like a sore thumb. All right, so on film, we're seeing a guy. Look, if you want the guy that can turn a 10-yard play into a 90-yard play, you're going to want TreVeyon Henderson. I'm addicted to drafting him in best ball right now because I think he's at a good price point. So very fast, very explosive. It's not just straight line speed either. He can stop and start on a dime. We're talking about very good footwork, which you would hope coming through Ohio State's program. They've coached him up on that. Another thing that kind of sticks out to me a little bit, he is a very, not just willing blocker, he's an aggressive blocker. We're talking about there were plays where he lined up, they were in a split back formation, and he would lead block for Judkins. And he's putting, SEC, Big Ten, insert big school here, linebackers on their butt, which you don't expect from a 208 back. I don't even know if he'll weigh in at 208. He might bulk up just for the combine. They'll do the Bryce Young eat lead weights before he goes to weigh in. Bottom line on film, this is a very good running back. I know that the position has been devalued. Going to go off the show sheet a little bit. We talked about this before. You said that you don't see him going in the first round. Where would you be comfortable with him going?
So if I were an NFL GM, the absolute earliest I would take him is probably the New York Giants at 34. I know Tyrone Tracy had a great year, but at the end of the day, he's a fifth-round pick. We've seen it time and time again. Running backs with day 3 capital, they do not get to keep their jobs far more often than not. This is a stacked running back class, and all we heard for the last calendar year was the Giants are idiots for letting Saquon Barkley walk. He just won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, and I think the Giants, for better or worse, are going to overcorrect and say, okay, we need to go get the best running back we can. Taking Ashton Genty at 3 would be malpractice. Everyone in the organization would be fired on the spot. Yep. That means you're probably taking the best running back left at 34, which there's a good chance that's Henderson.
Yeah. With how deep this class is, it's going to be a real, I feel like every NFL GM is just going to be playing chicken. Do you want to take Genty at 10, or do you want to take Henderson at 40 and then also take, I don't know, Damian Martinez, Ollie Gordon, take one of those big bruisers and get that pair on a cheaper contract rather than just getting Ashton Genty and getting the whole package. Spoilers, you already said one of the key landing spots, so we could see him going to the Giants. There's also been a ton of mock drafts. Lance Zierlein just put out a recent one that had Henderson going in the first round. Some of those first-round options for Henderson could be the Chiefs all the way at the end or the Chargers in the back half. Both of them have a hole at running back. So let's say he goes to one of the Chiefs, Chargers, or Giants. How do you feel about his dynasty price right now? In some mock drafts, he's going somewhere in the 103 to 105 range in those rookie mocks.
So if he gets that late first, early second draft capital, which seems likely that at the very least it's going to be top half of the second, but again, who knows? The class is so stacked. I'd be perfectly fine taking him, in that general area. Chances are, unless someone gets like a dream landing spot, Genti and Tet 101, 102. I'd have to say probably my next 3-4 picks are whichever 3 or 4 running backs get drafted in that order. It's all the same tier. So whichever one ends up with the Chargers is going to be my 103. Whichever one ends up with the Chiefs is my 104. Whichever one ends up with the Giants is my 105.
Man, poor Tyrone Tracy. We're already penciling in his replacement. He had a good rookie season,
As someone who lived and most certainly died on the buy low on James Robinson train of 2020, yeah, no, I'm never trusting another late round running back.
Yeah, no, it's definitely tough, but I like what you bring up about these running backs. The tier, so it's Genti, class of his own. He could go top 10 in the draft and no one would bat an eye. But then there's Henderson, Judkins, Hampton, Johnson is all just one big tier there for me. I think Henderson of the bunch is the best pass catcher of the group. I think that he is the most explosive of the group, and I think that's why he's a great best ball target. Do you see him kind of handling a workload at the NFL? Do you see him being a 1A in a committee, or do you see him more as a 1B?
That is my biggest red flag with him, and why, situation independent, he's probably my RB3, but it's such a narrow margin that I'm not going to argue against anyone who has him as RB2, just because he is 5'10", 208. You can make that work, but he's battled injuries the last 2 years, which if it happens like football, it's a physical game, injuries happen. But if it keeps happening time and time again, these things don't tend to get better with age. I'm also not the biggest fan that he's going to be 23 by the time the year starts. That's pretty old for a running back, especially, one in this class where there are a bunch of great options. This isn't if this was last year's class, he's my RB1 and I'm not thinking twice about it. But this year I have a lot of good options to think about. I'm probably going with someone like Hampton, who in my eyes is just as good a runner, just as good a pass catcher, at least in the same ballpark, but doesn't have necessarily the injury risk. I believe he's a year younger too.
Yep. He is 6 months older than Omarion Hampton. He is almost a full calendar year older than Caleb Johnson and is a calendar year older than Quinshon Judkins. Just something to keep in mind. These running backs already have a short shelf life. So if you're an ageist, you're going to like the other guys. If you like the explosive and pass catching, you're going to like TreVeyon Henderson. Anything else to say on Henderson before we close out?
No, I believe we've covered it all. I just want to say with the disclaimer, we're splitting hairs here. These guys are all really good. It's a stacked class, and assuming they get the draft capital we think they're going to get, it's really tough to go wrong with Henderson at any point in the 103, 106 range.
Yep. If TreVeyon Henderson goes to your NFL team, you should be happy. If he goes to your Dynasty team, you should also be happy. Explosive rusher, tons of upside. If you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG Podcast. If you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to check out written content, head over to lastwordonsports.com.
Don't let the Goblins get you.